What's up, everybody? It's Igo. We just had an official Nintendo Switch 2 Direct with over an hour of content going over hardware, accessories, games, new features, and everything about this new console. Let's unpack it all. First, let's talk about the hardware. The new upgraded screen is going to be a 7.9-inch 1080p LCD VRR HDR support screen, which is a lot to unpack. This screen is going to provide so much of a better viewing experience for everyone. The Joy-Con are now magnetic, releasing on an electromagnetic rail system. There's bigger shoulder buttons on both the actual triggers and on the inside of the Joy-Con if you were to turn them sideways. They have larger sticks that are hopefully going to prevent the drifting problems that we had on the original sticks. And their newest, weirdest quirk for this console is mouse features baked into the Joy-Con. Now, I would like to see official mouse support for a regular handheld mouse in the case that somebody just wants to use a keyboard and mouse when playing their games. But I do think that this is really neat and kind of a fun, goofy mechanic that we can use for certain games. I've also been told that the mice can be used on your jeans or any other surface. However, Nintendo states that depending on the material of the surface, you may be getting some form of reactivity issues and that it's best to use on a flat surface. We are getting upgraded speakers for a better listening experience, a built-in mic for voice chat and noise canceling, which we'll get into that later because I do have some concerns there. Better audio for 3D audio listeners. If you are using headphones or maybe a surround sound setup, it's going to give you a better sense of spatial awareness. We have a new kickstand that looks a little less flimsy than the original one, and it can be bent back at multiple angles. And then the camera accessory that we had predicted in my previous video, it looks a little different, and it's got a whole bunch of strange features that we'll get into. I do want to clarify with you, though, because Nintendo did not say this in the Direct, however, it is on their website. You may be able to use a USB-C camera accessory that you already own. However, not all cameras may work as intended. You can easily check compatibility using the Test USB camera feature locked in the Nintendo Switch 2 system settings. We'll talk more about the camera later. I just wanted to put that in here as part of hardware changes. The charger is now smaller and more portable. We're getting an upgrade of 256 gigs of storage, which is really welcome considering everybody essentially had to buy a SD card to put up into their previous Switch because the 32 gigs that were baked onto the original Switch was just not enough. The new dock will support 4K. This was something that we had talked about potentially where they may stick like a GPU inside of the dock to increase the power levels. The dock, instead of having a GPU in it, has a fan, which is going to provide better cooling, and everything's going to be done on the system. This is a big surprise from Nintendo. Nintendo loves to use last generation's hardware and run things under performance, but here we have a 120 hertz screen. Nobody was seeing that coming. We've got 4K official games. You can get Metroid Prime 4 upgraded to 4K, and you can upgrade Zelda into 4K, which is going to look amazing with the HDR support on the screen and in the docked mode. Docked mode now does support HDR for nicer TVs. And then, of course, it is backwards compatible with compatible games. We'll get into the compatibility stuff more when we talk about the games in this video. And then the battery life is still untold. We're supposed to be getting better battery life than the original Switch, but we'll see how true that is when we actually get our hands on it firsthand. These hardware upgrades are very welcome. It's something that's going to breathe a fresh life of air into this console for a better playing experience. I think they've really put a focus here on increasing the quality of life for the gamer on the mobile setup. I think they really do want you to take this console out and about or around your home and bring it with you as kind of your daily carry and to help it kind of compete with some of these other PC handhelds that are now starting to have 120 hertz refresh rate screens. Next thing that I have for us in my video outline is the discussion of all of the accessories. I had mentioned this in my previous video that this console is going to have a whole lot of them. Now, the one accessory that we did not see that I spoke about in my previous video was a second screen attachment, like a clamshell DS. We did not see that. I got a lot of comments about it, about how it's never going to happen. I'm not done dreaming yet. It's still a possibility. They can always add it later. So the ones that we have confirmed, the big accessories, is the Pro Controller 2. This new Pro Controller is going to feature HD Rumble 2, a C button for game chat, remappable back buttons. These are really welcome. I think every Pro Controller should have remappable back buttons. I use them all the time, depending on which game I'm playing. It's also going to have a headphone jack for audio in case you want to use your headphones while you're playing and not disturb others, or if you're on call with your friends and you just want a better listening experience. It is going to retail for $80. I feel like that's pretty fair for a Pro Controller. That's a pretty normal price. What is a steep price for me is the Joy-Con. The Joy-Con for the previous console were $70, which was pretty expensive. They are now priced at $90. With these new Joy-Con, you get updated motion controls, HD Rumble 2, that C button for communications, larger shoulder buttons, and larger face buttons and sticks. We are hoping that these Joy-Con last longer and don't have to be replaced as often. That way we're not shelling out $90 every time we need a new pair of Joy-Con if something were to happen to them. Or if you have younger children who maybe aren't as gentle, you may want to put your Switch in a case to help protect the Joy-Con. The Nintendo Switch 2 camera, if you want the official Nintendo Switch camera, is going to retail for $50. It is USB-C, can be used in either docked or tabletop mode, and has a built-in privacy shutter. So if you're maybe getting up off the couch to go to the restroom, or you need to take care of something in your home, you can just flick that switch real quick and it will black out your camera, or you can just leave the call, and if you're that worried about it, you can just keep it off. That way you're not being seen if you don't want to be. The charge grip, if you want to have a charge grip for some extra Joy-Cons, is $35 from Nintendo Official, but there'll be lots of resellers and other third parties that'll have plenty of charge grips, Pro Controllers, and other accessories. Hori actually announced that they are going to have a third-party camera that might be a little bit cheaper that looks like Piranha Plant. I think I'm going to personally pick that one up just because it looks cool. Though I honestly don't know how much I'm going to use that camera, because most of the time if me and my friends are gaming, I'm just going to use Discord. The Switch 2 dock is $110 fat dollars. It is expensive. With that $110, you get the dock, the charger, and HDMI cable, and that's it. It is nice that it comes with a charging cable and an HDMI cable, though. If you need an extra dock around the house, I'm a little worried about how well these are going to stay in stock. The original Switch dock, I remember, it was always going out of stock, and it was really difficult to find. And if you wanted one, you had to pay $200 for it on eBay. And so I'm hoping that we have better availability for these. And then there is a official Switch 2 carrying case for $35 if you want the official Switch branded one. There's also going to be tons of resellers. They're probably already up on Amazon for Switch 2 accessories and cases and whatnot. I also do believe that Nintendo is going to be adding lots more accessories over the lifetime of the Switch 2. They're just kind of experimenting to see who's willing to buy in to these extra accessories after somewhat of a steep price for the initial console, which we'll talk about a little bit later. All right, so let's talk about new features for this console and some of the things that they showed us right at the very beginning. So one of the big things that Nintendo is trying to sell is they want you to play games with your friends. And so we now have a C button that opens up communications for the Nintendo Switch. This communication screen can do a whole bunch of different things for you. It allows you to join a call with your friends where you can have conversations while you're gaming. I do have concerns about the onboard mic on the Switch, considering if you are sitting pretty far from your TV, I do wonder how well that microphone will be able to pick you up and how good the kind of AI noise cancellation is going to be. Nowadays, that stuff does tend to be pretty good, especially on Discord and FaceTime and other call centers that I have used, so I think it's going to be fine, but it is a little worrying about the quality of how good it's going to be when it's that far from you. Another really cool thing that you can do with this is you can stream your game to your friends. I do this on Discord all the time, so I'm really excited to do this on the Nintendo Switch. However, the stream, when we were watching it through the Nintendo Direct, when you're streaming your game to another person, it does look like it's at a pretty reduced quality and frame rate that is likely to reduce the load on your console while you're streaming to other people. So I'm not sure how often I would probably use this, especially since I have a capture card and most of my friends have capture cards. We're probably just going to continue to do this over Discord. You can also stream your face through your camera while playing your game, with your friends, kind of almost like a Twitch streamer, and you get to pretend like you're a streamer. But I do like the social aspect of it. I don't know how much I'm going to use this, because usually when my friends and I are gaming, we've got all of our lights off and our cameras off, and we're in our pajamas, and we're not really looking to be on camera. But I do think this is really neat. I also saw some stuff with Mario Kart Jamboree, where there's fun game modes that you can do with the camera. So it's a nice kind of quirky thing, just not really sure how often I may use that. A feature that I am really excited to use frequently is going to be the game share feature. This is very similar to the game share feature that we had on an original DS, where if I had Mario Kart, my friend didn't have Mario Kart, we could play Mario Kart together through a sharing system. And so you could share your game to other people. The only concern I have with the game share is whether or not the console that is sharing the game is locally hosting it. The other people are playing off of your console essentially, and it's being streamed to them, or if it's running locally on each device, because that could cause issues with latency and other things. But Nintendo's been in the game long enough that I'm hoping they've probably ironed any latency issues out for that. But I think game share is really cool. The featured games are going to be Mario Kart, Mario Party Jamboree, Super Mario 3D World Bowser's Fury, Clubhouse Games, Captain Toad, and Super Mario Odyssey. We also are now going to have virtual game cards. This is something that they spoke about at the previous Direct, where your games that you own digitally through the Nintendo eShop are going to be essentially like a physical game. So these virtual game cards, if you own two different Switches, you have to essentially transfer the game between the two Switches, as if you were to, if you had a physical card, lift it out of the Switch and put it into the new console. I don't love this, because then if you're switching between two different systems frequently, you have to download it on the other or give permission on the other, and then it only has permission for 2 weeks. They just made it much more difficult and convoluted and really confusing. So that really isn't my favorite thing. But I understand that what they're trying to do with it is beat some certain piracy things. And by adding game share, they're hoping to alleviate that as well completely. The other thing that we are looking at is game key cards. A lot of people were very upset about this game key card thing, and I think it's because they misunderstood what it meant. So some people took this game key card thing as that any physical cartridge that you buy or purchase does not have the game locally stored on it, and it's getting downloaded from the internet. That is true if the game is a virtual game key card. This is something that we are actually pretty familiar with this. Xbox and PlayStation have been doing this for years. So in the case that the game you are trying to play is too large for the physical media format, so for example, if it was, let's say, Cyberpunk is a very large game. It can't fit onto the Nintendo Switch cartridge, so some of it might be on the cartridge and then the rest of the game has to be downloaded in order for you to play it. That's essentially what these game key cards are for, is just for games that are too big to actually fit onto a cartridge. It does not mean that every single physical game that you buy is going to be downloaded and that there's no point in having the physical cartridge. I think a lot of people misunderstood that, so I wanted to make sure that was clarified. The next thing in our outline is the games. Oh my gosh, they gave us 35 straight minutes of games, trailers, and all sorts of other things, and if you add the Mario Kart extravaganza that we had at the beginning of the thing, it's like 40 minutes of games, because no one wants to buy a console if it doesn't have great games on it. So the new games that are coming to the Nintendo Switch are Mario Kart World. I'm super excited for this game. They have this really cool open world kind of thing, which I'm going to be taking advantage of just to roam around, test different karts on different tracks in different areas. I'm really excited for this. 24-person Mario Kart also just sounds ridiculous. I'd like to see a 24-person arena of competition in Mario Kart. I think that's super fun. We have lots of different extra additional characters. Some of them I'll play. I'm super excited to play as the Penguin personally. Mario Kart is also getting its own Direct April 17th. This is like Nintendo heaven right now. We're getting Direct after Direct after Direct. We've never had this many Directs so close together. Nintendo is really coming to the grinder here and trying to give us everything they can. And I am super pumped because it is the perfect opportunity for me to restart this YouTube channel. So if you're new around here and you've watched this far, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. It really helps out the channel, and I appreciate you being here. The next thing is we're just going to talk about new games, games that are coming with upgrades, and then the games that are getting ports over to the Nintendo Switch. So new games that are coming over to the Nintendo Switch that we have confirmed at this time: Mario Kart World, Donkey Kong Bonanza, Game X Drive, Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour. We have Daemon X Machina, Titanic Scion, The Dusk Bloods, Borderlands 4. I'm super excited, gonna be picking that one up. Street Fighter 6, grabbing that one. Enter the Gungeon 2, Deltarune, and I put this as a question on my outline: Super Mario Odyssey Sequel 2. Not confirmed, but I do know we are going to be getting a new Super Mario game for this console. Something that is unique to the Nintendo Switch 2 is that it is a transitional console in the fact that it is backwards compatible with all of these Switch games. Everyone, this is me editing this video. I wanted to clarify something real quick. Not all Switch 1 games are compatible with the Switch 2. Nintendo has said this is because the Switch 2 was built from the ground up with all new hardware, so there's some hardware compatibility issues that they are solving. If you go onto Nintendo's website, you can find a list of games that are compatible, as well as a list of games that they have known startup issues that they're working through. And then there's another list of games that they say have other compatibility issues, and they say they're working through it and they should be all fixed at some point. However, I imagine on launch that many of these are going to remain unchanged, considering they're leaving this list up now on their website. So some Switch 1 games you can bring over to your Switch 2, and you can pay a $10 to $20 fee to upgrade it to the Switch 2 version of the game. This is going to give you upgraded resolution, better graphics, better colors, HDR support. For Metroid Prime 4 specifically, it is 4K, 120 FPS. That is fast and exciting. I'm going to be upgrading Metroid. I'm really excited about this. This was something we discussed in the previous video about how a lot of these games that we were seeing at that previous Direct were probably developed really for the Switch 2. And I'm super excited to see what Xenoblade X looks like on the Switch 2 as a Xenoblade X fan. The games with upgrades right now that we have confirmed: Metroid Prime 4, Zelda Breath of the Wild, Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, Project 007. I put that as an upgrade because it's a remake of an old game that was very popular. So I'm excited for that. And then Xenoblade X, I believe, is also getting one, although they didn't mention it in the Direct specifically. And then these are some games that are getting ports over to the Nintendo Switch that I'm really excited to see in a mobile format. We discussed these in my previous video, one of which is Elden Ring. I'm super excited to have Elden Ring on the go. I love Elden Ring. It's just a great, grindy, Souls-like game. And the DLCs for Elden Ring are also going to be available on the Switch. We have Cyberpunk being added to the Switch. Cyberpunk is at a lower resolution, obviously, than it is on PC, and we can see a little bit of that in the trailer. There's some strange, harsh, jagged edges and anti-aliasing stuff. We're also getting Split Fiction coming over to the Switch. Final Fantasy Remake Integrate. I think this is well overdue for these Final Fantasy games to start coming over to these Nintendo consoles. They've really just been on PC and PlayStation forever, which is why a lot of people have been playing on the PS5. I think Nintendo's really trying to genuinely compete with these other consoles now for having games that look good in 4K on TV and can kind of compete with these other consoles. We're also looking at Hogwarts Legacy, Civilization 7, Yakuza 0 Director's Cut, and Star Wars Outlaws. So lots of games being added to the Switch, and this is just the beginning of what they're going to do. And I think once other developers see how exciting this new console is, they're going to start developing and porting more things over, just like they did with the original Switch. Online services are seeing a bit of a change. We are now going to have the game chat feature added to NSO. We are also getting, and I am super excited for this, I've been waiting for this for a long time, is GameCube added. Like I talked about in my previous video, we are now making the ultimate Nintendo gaming machine. So we're going to have GameCube now officially come over to the Nintendo Switch, and they are also releasing a GameCube controller specifically for the Nintendo Switch 2 that's going to have a C button, a home button, and all the other buttons you needed if you were like me and using the OG, if you were like me using the OG GameCube controllers, it was a little awkward because you didn't have a home button, so you had to like press home on your Pro controller and then go back to using your GameCube controller playing certain games. It was just a little awkward. I would like to see DS games come over to the Switch. I understand that the whole 2-screen thing is probably the biggest barrier for that, and they could emulate it side by side if they really wanted to, but Nintendo, give me the dual screen. You can do it. It's possible. I know it's hardware possible if we can run a 4K TV that we could run 2 screens at 1080p or even 720. I mean, it's a DS game. It doesn't need a ton of resolution. Think about it, Nintendo. And then we get into the heavy part of this video, and that's the price. This console isn't cheap. It's $450 base. And then if you buy the Mario Kart bundle, it's $500. Now, Nintendo did avoid saying this in the Nintendo Switch Direct, and I think that was a little intentional on their part, as they didn't want people getting into the stream comments and going crazy about the price numbers. So we had to find this out by going to the Nintendo Switch 2 website. Now, the Switch 2's release date is June 5th officially, and pre-orders were supposed to start April 9th, I believe. However, they have been delayed due to tariffs, and we may actually see an increase in price to the Switch console. Now, the initial price of $450 does seem quite high. However, when we account for inflation and compare it against other Nintendo consoles when they were released price-wise, it is pretty close. However, it is still on the expensive side. I recorded this entire video and realized that I forgot to talk about the price of the games, which is a big hot topic right now. For digital copies, we're looking at $80, and physical copies, we are looking at $90. That is almost $100 per game on the console. Now, if you buy the Nintendo Switch bundle with Mario Kart, it does knock $30 off of Mario Kart, but we're still looking at a big price for all of these other games. Now, the Nintendo Switch 1 games, if you were to purchase them for their base price at $60 and then upgrade them for the Switch 2 version for $20, we're still looking at a total of $80 there spent per game. So these are some pretty high, steep prices. I'm hoping these do come down eventually over time, or we're maybe all going to be buying our games on sale or something, or boycotting them until Nintendo is forced to bring them down, but I don't see that happening because, let's be real, all of us are going to pay these heavy price tags to play the console and play the games anyways, and Nintendo knows it. This console does not come cheap, and a lot of that is just due to the tariffs that are happening in the US right now, and I don't see those tariffs leaving for a good time, and so we are looking at a pretty high price for the Nintendo Switch 2, and Nintendo themselves has admitted that it is due to the tariffs that we are seeing this delay in pre-orders. Now, this delay could be a couple of days, or it could be several weeks or months. We're really unsure right now of where we're going to be, but they are saying that the June 5th release date, 2025, is the hard release date so far. I think the June 5th release date for the Nintendo Switch is perfect. It's right in time for the summer where people are going to be traveling for summer break and going on vacation, and people are going to want to have something with them to have on the plane or go traveling to bring with their families. And I think it's a perfect release date. It might get pushed back potentially, so don't hold your breath, but we're really hoping for June 5th, and I'll have it right here for me. We'll do an unboxing for you guys. I'm also going to pick up a second copy if I can, to take a look on the inside and take it all apart, which will be super fun, and maybe we'll mod it with some new shells or something like that, if there's anything available yet. So just to wrap up everything, we've got a new console with a better screen, better buttons, better Joy-Cons. We've got 4K resolution, 120 hertz on the handheld end of things. We've got a weird, goofy camera, some new communication tools that I think are well overdue but very welcome, and lots of exciting new games with upgrades and new games coming to the Switch, and some that are older getting upgrades that they well deserved. Probably what Nintendo dreamed of those games being at the beginning, but just couldn't do it due to hardware limitations at the time. I'm so excited for this console. There's going to be a ton happening over the next couple of months preparing for this, and once we got the console in our hands, it's go time. We're going to be making videos nonstop, so if you're not already subscribed, hit the subscribe button. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I'll catch you in the next one. Can you tell I'm excited? I'm excited. Let's do this thing. Seriously, go hit the subscribe button. It's right there. Click it. If every single one of you subscribe today, we could make it to 1,000 subscribers by the end of the week. Thanks.